This is Freshly Squeezed True Crime, a Florida-only true crime podcast. I'm Suhaili, and before we get to this week's juicy episode, I ask you to visit the website at fstcpodcast.com, where you'll find all of our social media platforms as well as the newest episodes. And also, find us on YouTube, where we'd like you to follow us, subscribe, share it, do all the things. So, pour yourself a tall glass of orange juice, and let me tell you a story.
If you're afraid of clowns, worry not. This episode mentions none. However, we will be discussing the circus. Ringling Brothers World's Greatest Shows is a circus founded in Baraboo, Wisconsin, United States in 1884 by 5 of his 7 Ringling brothers: Albert, August, Otto, Alfred, Charles, John, and Henry, and sister Ida Loraina Wilhelmina Ringling. The Ringling brothers were sons of a German immigrant, August Frederick Rüngeling, who changed his name to Ringling once he settled in America, and his wife, Marie Salome Juliar. In 1882, before the Ringling brothers created their first circus, the 5 brothers performed skits and juggling routines in town halls and across the state of Wisconsin. The first show was on November 27, 1882, in Mazomanie, Wisconsin. They called this the Ringling Brothers Variety Performance when they took the show to the next town. With 2 wandering performers, the next year the brothers toured the Northwest. After the Northwest tour, they used the money earned for suits. They expanded their acts into a one-ring show in 1884. The show added a trick horse and a bear at the end of the season. The circus started traveling by train in 1888, allowing the show to consistently expand. Ringling Circus purchased the Yankee Robinson Circus and opened a joint show on May 19, 1884. This brought them to the attention of James Anthony Bailey of Barnum and Bailey Circus as a viable competitor. The brothers met with Bailey, thus agreeing to a division of areas. This was followed by them purchasing a half share of the Adam Fourpaw Sells Brothers Circus from Bailey. Bailey, under the area division, prohibited the Ringlings from playing at the Madison Square Garden, a location it was the brothers' ambition to perform at. In 1887, Ringling Circus changed its official title to the Ringling Brothers United Monster Shows Great Double Circus Royal European Menagerie Museum Caravan and Congress of Trained Animals. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? In 1906, Bailey died, which led to the Ringlings taking over Fourpaw Sells, which continued to operate separately. In October 1907, the stockholders of Barnum and Bailey Circus approved the sale of the circus to the Ringlings. Due to declining audiences and employees being drafted for World War I, Ringling Circus and Barnum and Bailey Circus merged in 1919 as Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, and on March 29, 1919, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus debuted at Madison Square Garden in New York City. In 1919, brothers John and Charles made the decision to move the winter quarters to Sarasota, Florida, in 1927, where the brothers were having success in real estate speculation. Although a resident of Sarasota, Charles died in 1926 before the move was complete. With the death of his brother Charles, John was now the last of the Ringling brothers. Although other family members had inherited stock in the company, as president he continued to manage the circus in the years before the Great Depression. In 1929, John Ringling bought the American Circus Corporation. He bought them for $1.7 million, or approximately $28.9 million today. With that acquisition, Ringling owned all of the major traveling circuses in America. In 1933, the last of the Ringling brothers, ill and aging John, who had owned more circuses than any other man on earth and whose fortune was once estimated to be $50 million, hobbled into a federal court in Brooklyn to testify on the loan that brought him low. You see, Ringling's health soon began to fail, and the Great Depression, which gripped the nation almost as soon as he acquired the American Circus Corporation, dealt a severe financial blow to the John Ringling empire. He lost virtually his entire fortune, but was able to retain his home, the museum, and his extensive art collection. His wife Mabel died in June 1929, and he remarried June 19, 1930, to Emily Hagg Buck in Jersey City, New Jersey. Yes, a year later, I guess we all mourn differently. Ringling was voted out of control of the business in 1932 by its board of directors, and Sam Guppers was named vice president and general manager of the circus. By the way, John and Emily Hagg Buck divorced July 6, 1936. John Ringling died on December 2, 1936, in New York City. He was the last Ringling to die, as well as the longest lived of the Ringling brothers. He was the only brother to reach his 70s. Once one of the world's wealthiest men, he died with only $311 in the bank, the equivalent of $7,225.36. At his death, he willed his Sarasota mansion, the museum, and his entire art collection to the state of Florida. The House of Cezanne and the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art offer visitors a glimpse into the lifestyle of the Roaring Twenties, a renowned art collection and library. Another of John's legacies is the Ringling College of Art and Design, which was asked to adopt his name because of the cultural influence of the museum and its collection. A museum devoted to the Ringling Brothers Circus has established on the estate also. After his death, the circus was operated by his nephew, John Ringling North, who sold the circus to Judge Roy Hoffids of Houston and Washington, D.C. promoters Irv Field and Israel Field in 1967. In 1991, John and Mabel Ringling and his sister Ida Ringling North were exhumed from their original resting places and reburied at the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art just in the front and to the right of the Salle Cezanne. It is called the Secret Garden, and John is buried between the two women. The Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus eventually closed after 146 years. In the face of weakening attendance, animal rights protests, and high operating costs, it performed its final show on May 21, 2017 at Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. The relaunch, or as I like to call it, the remix, bitches. In early 2022, the circus began auditioning artists for a retooled circus. More than 1,000 acts applied, and auditions were held in Paris, Las Vegas, Ethiopia, and Mongolia. Feld Entertainment announced that the circus would resume operations in the fall of 2023 with a tour of 50 cities. The cities said the new show would debut as a, quote, multi-platform entertainment franchise, end quote, and without animals. The first show kicked off on October the 20th, 2023. The circus kicked off its 2026 tour on January 2nd, 2026 in Tampa, Florida, followed by North Carolina, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, New York, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Rhode Island, and Virginia. The circus is no place for animals. Animals in the circus live miserable lives of deprivation, confinement, and abuse. In the circus, virtually all of the animals' natural behaviors are thwarted. Elephants, tigers, bears, and other animals in the circus suffer from constant travel, abusive training, and social isolation. Circuses are on the road for weeks at a time. While traveling elephants are kept chained in trunks or railroad cars, tigers, bears, and other animals in the circus are transported in barren, cramped cages. Often, the breed performances are the only time animals in the circus are allowed out of their cages or freed from their chains. Elephants suffer from captivity-induced health problems such as arthritis and other chronic foot and joint problems, conditions linked to prolonged chaining and lack of proper exercise. It is not unusual to see animals in the circus displaying neurotic, repetitive behaviors, such as swaying back and forth, head bobbing, or cage pacing, brought on by the monotony of confinement. Violent and physical abuse remains a common method of training and controlling elephants and other animals in the circus. Animals perform under threat of punishment. The bull hook, or the ankus, is a sharp, pointed hook used to control elephants. Bull hooks are used to strike, hook, prod, and intimidate elephants into obedience. Most of the elephants in circuses are captured from their natural habitats in Africa or Asia in the 1960s and 70s, before they were declared endangered species. Elephants are highly intelligent animals who have complex social relationships. In the wild, young elephants nurse for several years. Female elephants stay with their mothers and their family groups for their entire lives. Elephants born into the circus have a dismal future. In the circus, baby elephants are forcibly removed from their mothers and trained to perform when they should still be nursing. Elephants and other wild animals used in circuses are also a public safety risk. Since 1990, 17 humans have died and over 100 injured in incidents involving captive elephants in the United States. But you can help. Never attend a circus featuring animal acts, and boycott all businesses that sponsor the circus. As an alternative, enjoy popular non-animal circuses such as Cirque du Soleil, which features trapeze artists, jugglers, clowns, acrobats, and other willing performers. Encourage children to appreciate and respect wild animals and their natural habitat. Teach children that it is not acceptable to force animals to do tricks for our amusement. A growing number of cities, including Miami, Pompano Beach, and Hollywood, have restricted or banned circuses and other exotic animal acts. Ask your city council to join them and compassionate communities by enacting an anti-circus ordinance. Contact the Animal Rights Foundation of Florida at arff.org. Sideshow. In North America, a sideshow is an extra secondary production associated with a circus, carnival affair, or other such attraction. They historically feature animal oddity exhibits, so-called, quote, freak shows, preserved specimens, real or fabricated, such as Fiji's mermaid, live animal acts, burlesque or strip shows actually, or allegedly dangerous stunts, or stunts that appear painful, like the human blockhead. Most modern sideshows feature fewer to no animal acts and have a greater focus on trainable feats or consequential body modification, rather than exhibiting people with conjugal disabilities, either due to changing public opinion or local laws prohibiting the exhibition of disabled people or animals. Trainable acts associated with sideshows include sword swallowing, fire breathing, and manipulation, magic and visual illusions, human blockhead, knife throwing, lying on a bed of nails, contortion, and may also include an overlap with circus acts such as juggling, aerial hoop, silk chains, acrobats, and motorcycle stunts like the Globe of Death. Whether such an act is considered quote a sideshow or circus depends on the show itself is billed or advertised to potential viewers. Sideshow as a theme is associated with the strange, grotesque, provocative, and taboo. Some movies, TV shows, Halloween decoration manufacturers, and live performers have adopted these aesthetics, which may include dramatic costumes, dangerous stunts, deformed humans or animals, sexual themes, horror elements, and other provocative or disturbing imagery. The horror anthology American Horror Story Freak Show involved sideshow themes throughout its story and promotional materials. It features dramatization versions of real sideshow performers from history, such as Aerodactyl character Jimmy Darling, portrayed by Evan Peters, in prosthetic makeup based on the real lobster boy Grady Stiles Jr. The show also featured actors with real congenital abnormalities such as Matt Frazier, born with phocomelia, and Jody Amedge, the world's smallest living woman. There are 4 main types of classic sideshow attractions. The 10-in-1 offers a program of 10 sequential acts under one tent for a single admission price. The single O is a single attraction, for example, a single curiosity, like the Bonnie and Clyde Death Car, a museum show, which might be deceptively billed as the world's greatest freaks past and present, as a sideshow in which the exhibits are usually not alive. And finally, a girl show was offered sometimes, in which women were the primary attraction, with women fully clothed to strip down. In Florida, as of 2024, it is a misdemeanor offense to display deformed animals in any place where a fee is charged. There is currently no law in Florida prohibiting human oddity exhibitions. By the 1830s, outside shows began to be established alongside traveling circuses. Initially, the circuses distanced themselves from the sideshow, but in 1850, a relationship was established between them. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, freak shows were at the height of popularity. The period of 1840s through the 1940s saw the organized for-profit exhibition of people with physical, mental, or behavioral rarities. Although not all abnormalities were real, some being alleged, the exploitation for profit was seen as an accepted part of American culture. The attractiveness of freak shows led to the spread of the shows that were commonly seen as amusement parks, circuses, time museums, and vaudeville. The early amusement park industry flourished in the United States by the expanding middle class, benefited from short work weeks and a larger income. There was also a shift in American culture that influenced people to see leisure activities as a necessary and beneficial equivalent to working, thus leading to the popularity of the freak shows. By the 1920s, the circus was declining as a major form of amusement due to competition from amusement parks, movie houses, burlesque tours, and the rise of the radio. Interest in sideshows declines as television made it easy and free to see the world's most exotic attractions. Moreover, viewing human oddities became distasteful as the public consciousness changed and many localities passed laws forbidding the exhibition of freaks. The performers often protested to no avail that they had no objection to the sideshow, especially since it provided not only a good income for them, but in many cases it also provided their only possible job. With legal restrictions on human oddity exhibitions, most modern sideshows feature performances of train stunts and body modifications, which can, but do not necessarily require congenital abnormalities. Changing attitudes about physical differences led to the decline of the freak show as a form of entertainment towards the end of the 19th century, as previously mysterious abnormalities were scientifically explained as genetic mutations or diseases. Freaks became the objects of sympathy rather than fear or disdain. Laws were passed restricting freak shows for these reasons. So where's the crime, you say? Well, here we go. Grady Stiles Jr. is a rarity in the world of human marvels. By many accounts, the pterodactylogical terror was every bit the monster he seems. The Stiles family has been afflicted over a century with erytrodactyly, a condition commonly known as lobster claw syndrome. It is a rare congenital deformity of the hands where the middle digit is missing and the hand is cleft where the pericarpal of the finger should be. This split often gives the hands a lobster claw appearance, though cases vary in severity. Often this condition occurs in both the hands and the feet, and while it is an inherited condition, it can skip a generation. Although the term ectrodactyly sounds medically sterile when compared to lobster claw syndrome, William Stiles was the first in his family to display the condition in 1805. He was followed by Jacob Stiles, Alicia Stiles, and Grady Stiles Sr. Grady Stiles Sr. was born on May 30th, 1912, in Catawba, North Carolina. He was a sideshow attraction in a traveling carnival, and when Grady Franklin Stiles Jr., the Lobster Boy, was born in Pittsburgh on June 26, 1934, his father added him to the show at a young age. On July 18, 1937, Grady Stiles Jr. was the fourth child of Grady F. Stiles Sr. and his wife, Edna Maud, who was born May 24, 1913, in New Alexandria, Pennsylvania. Capitalizing on his deformity, Grady Stiles Sr. was a sideshow attraction in a traveling carnival. After Grady Jr. was born, he was folded into his father's sideshow act at the age of 7. For nearly half a century, he traveled from town to town on the carnival circuit, hoisting himself atop a cushioned platform in a sweltering tent. Quote, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Lobster Boy," he used to say. This condition is not caused by drugs or disease. It runs in the family. But many of the spectators ridiculed and harassed him because of his deformity. Being center stage for a carnival freak show monetarily paid well for Stiles, but consequently instilled Grady Jr. with pain and extreme resentment. As the boy grew into a bald, barrel-chested man, he eventually began turning to alcohol as an answer to his deep-seated anguish. Stiles married twice and had 3 children. 2 of those children, a girl Kathy and a boy Grady III, were born with variations of ectrodactyly. Although the siblings were from different mothers, they sometimes toured together as the Lobster family. When not traveling with the carnival, the Stiles family lived in Gibsonton, Florida, where many other carnival performers lived during the winter season. The family did well. They made anywhere between $50,000 to $80,000 per season, and unlike a lot of freak show acts, didn't have to subject themselves to anything more than curious stares. Gibtown. Gibsonton is an unincorporated community in Hillsborough County. US 41 runs through the center of the community. So why Gibsonton? It was once a winter haven for circus performers and home to the International Independent Showmen's Association and Museum, a non-for-profit private organization made up of people in the outdoor amusement industry. The population was 18,566 at the 2020 census, which is up from the 14,000 at the 2010 census. There are over 4,500 members from all over the U.S. and several foreign countries. Gibsonton is also the home of the largest trade show in the carnival industry. Exhibits include rides, food supplies and equipment concession trailers, electrical supplies, insurance companies, novelty items, plush toys, and jewelry. Gibtown's International Independent Showmen's Museum houses on 2 floors a wide assortment of antique equipment, historic printed materials, and detailed exhibits that tell the carnival story, most of it donated by practicing carnies. Their words, not mine. Carnival items from across the country reflecting nearly a century of carnival experiences have been donated. The museum features photos of carnival setups throughout the years, with a particular focus on carnival transportation and the role that Gibsonton played in the carnival history. The museum has one of the first Ferris wheels in the U.S., which is assembled right in the middle of the exhibits. Visitors can enjoy artifacts such as slinkly black beaded costume worn by famous burlesque dancer Gypsy Rose Lee, as well as an outfit worn by the Viking giant Johan K. Prudison. Visitors are also able to walk through carny trailers, which open to transform from a dull-looking compartment into brightly lit and ornate facades. Gibsonton was famous as a sideshow, wintering town where various people in the carnival and circus business would spend their off-season, placing it near the winter home for the Ringling Bros Circus at Tampa, Sarasota, and Venice in various times. It was home to Priscilla, the monkey girl, and the anatomical wonder Siamese twin sisters ran a fruit stand there. At one time, it was the only post office with a counter for little people. Gibsonton was one of the first places in the country with zoning to accommodate keeping circus animals on the residential property. The circus crew lived inside a mobile home community called Bullfrog Creek. Today, there are still rides, trailers, equipment, and even unique landmarks left behind as reminders. Gibsonton is near the winter home for the Ringling Bros Circus at Tampa, Sarasota, and Venice at various times. In the media, the town was the setting for the 1995 X-Files episode Humbug, which was actually filmed in Vancouver, British Columbia. The episode is about sideshow performers, but does not star any of the town's actual residents. The town featured prominently in the Dean Koontz book Twilight Eyes, which features a character who sought refuge in the circus community and came back to Gibtown with them as the traveling season drew to a close. Gibsonton is the inspiration for a novel called Kaleidoscope by Dara Wimberly, who has written other novels and non-fiction set in West Florida. Gibsonton was a setting for the July 17, 2011 episode of the Florida-based A&E crime drama The Glades. The episode, titled Gibtown, revolved around a murder in a town known as a haven for retired circus performers and referenced former residents such as Percy the Monkey Boy, the Human Block Cat, Al Porcus the 8.5-foot tall giant, and the Burmese Siamese twins. In the novel Once Burned by Jeannie Frost, Gibsonton is the hometown of the main heroine Layla, who, after suffering a heroic accident as a teen, could channel electricity and learn a person's darkest secrets through a single touch. Finally, Bar Rescue filmed 2 episodes, including one where John Tafler rescues a bar on the Alfalfa River. So, back to Grady Stiles Jr. Grady's condition was severe and he was unable to walk. He learned to use his hands and arms for locomotion, and as a result, he developed incredible upper body strength. But he had a dark side. Stiles was an alcoholic and was abusive to his family. His substantial upper body strength, when combined with his bad temper and alcoholism, made him dangerous to others. He often used his frightening strength to beat his wives and his children. Mary Teresa Herzog claims that at age 19 she ran away from an abusive home to join the carnival. Mary was never part of the act, just a crew member, until later when she became the electrified girl. She and Stiles were married in 1958 and had 2 children, Donna, no deformities, and Kathy, a 5th generation. Only a few years into the marriage, Mary Stiles said whiskey transformed her husband into a battering brute. For years, he beat Mary and the children, and even threatened to kill Mary on more than one occasion. It all came to a head during a fight in 1973 when Grady launched himself at her, threw her to the ground, ripped her pantyhose, reached his claw hands and ripped out Mary's IUD with his bare hands and choked her. Mary was so disgusted, horrified, and emotionally wounded, she decided she couldn't take it anymore and quickly divorced him. Mary remarried in 1973. His name was Harry Glenn Newman, a little person on the carnival circuit as the world's smallest man. Grady eventually won custody of the children, due to Mary not attending court and Grady being the breadwinner. He took the children and moved to his hometown of Pittsburgh, where he married a woman named Barbara Lucille and had his son, Grady Stiles III, in 1976. He too was born with deformities like his father and his sister Kathy. The Stiles family set out on the road to put on shows in several towns and cities and was known as the Lobster Family. Even when he was single, Stiles exerted a very strict control over his children and dictated who they interacted with. A little ditty about Jack and Donna. Picture it. September 27th, 1978. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His oldest daughter, Donna, then 15, ran away with a boyfriend, Jack Lane, and announced they had to get married because she was pregnant. This was a lie. But nonetheless, her father summoned his future son-in-law, quote, for a private talk. Stiles did not approve of her new beau and called for him so the pair could have a private talk. Grady's control over his family was top priority, and he was not about to give that up. He had threatened Donna that he would kill Jack if she didn't let up. Hoping to win over his soon-to-be father-in-law, the man came to speak with Stiles. But as the young man approached the house, Stiles pulled out a shotgun and fired 2 blasts. Donna recalls that he fell into her arms, where he died within moments. She also remembers how her father just sat on the porch smiling. He then said, quote, "I told you I would kill him." The pair had plans to be married the very next day. In 1979, the case went on to trial. It was a media circus. Get it? Grady's character witnesses included his friends from the circus, included the bearded lady, a carnival dwarf, and the fat man. In court, Grady openly confessed to the crime and showed little remorse as he claimed self-defense. However, he did not serve any time for the murder and used his condition to his advantage. He was convicted of third-degree murder. He was not sent to prison, as no state institution was equipped to care for an inmate with his deformity. Stiles also had cirrhosis from heavy drinking and emphysema from smoking 3 packs of Pall Mall cigarettes a day. It was stated that confining him to such an institution would constitute cruel and unusual punishment. Stiles was instead sentenced to house arrest and 15 years probation. Donna never spoke to her father again, but his temper and abusive behavior remained, and his second wife soon divorced him as well. It sucks to suck, because Stiles stopped drinking thereafter, and Mary says her love for Lobster Boy drove her back into his arms. They remarried in 1989 after he divorced his second wife and assured her his drinking days were over. However, 2 weeks later, he was back to the same old Gary, and soon began drinking again, and his family claimed that he became even more abusive. Following these events, Grady felt invincible. One of his favorite taunts was, quote, "I killed before, got away with it. I can do it again." All the while, the family still ventured out on the road with their freak show. They had a 10-in-1 performance featuring a human pincushion, a human blockhead, Hermes pythons, a gorilla lady illusion act, and a sideshow of animal oddities. But the main attraction remained the Lobster Boy, in his yellow and white tent draped with banners. One showed the star underwater catching fish with his claws. Another depicted his mother's horrified reaction to his birth. Towards the end of his life, family members said he would be drunk on stage and would lunge at customers to scare them. He wore his hate like a blanket and had a sour disposition that alienated fellow carnies and even his own attorney. Mary Teresa said he sexually abused her, tried to smother her with a pillow, and one morning woke her with a whiskey breath and a butcher knife to her throat. Quote, "One of these days I'm going to kill you and your family," he would say. He would then drop the knife and crawl away. Something had to be done. Neighbors testified to hearing frequent screams from the Stiles home. He would use his claw-like fingers as dangerous weapons to choke, beat, and slam his wife and children in the face. Skin and eyes were often the target. Eventually, the family had enough. The murder for hire plot was planned for weeks in advance, but it doesn't seem like much was planned in the way of getting away with it. It's as if they mostly cared about having him home. On November 29, 1992, 55-year-old Gary, watching television in his tidy whities whilst in his trailer in Gibsonton, was gunned down by a hired assassin. Mary, together with a son from a previous marriage, Harry Glenn Newman III, hired a 17-year-old sideshow performer and classmate named Chris Wyatt to kill Styles for $1,500, the equivalent to $3,400 in today. Harry Glenn Newman III, who was described as a boy of normal size, round face, and pudgy with an IQ of 79, was a human blockhead. His talent was driving nails into his nostrils. Chris Wyatt entered his home with a .32 semi-automatic pistol and shot Grady in the head twice, killing him at point-blank range. They found no signs of forced entry, which negated the possibility of a home invasion. Detectives reportedly deduced that it was an act of revenge. Styles was reportedly widely disliked in his community, so much so that only 10 people came to his funeral, and nobody volunteered as pallbearer to carry his coffin. As detectives began their initial investigation, they started looking into individuals Grady Jr. might have argued with. They discovered the list was long since he had reportedly engaged in multiple fights with others. They first turned their attention to Harry, who had claimed he was at the back of a house with Mary at his sister Kathy's trailer. When they questioned Kathy, she informed them about a carnival worker with whom he had argued. However, another worker, Marco, who lived in the back of the residence, informed the officials that he had seen a white male who was young, 5'8" in height, with blackish hair, fleeing from Grady Jr.'s trailer and going around the corner. When investigators spoke with Grady Jr.'s family members, they discovered that Mary and his children were reportedly on the receiving end of his constant abuse. Mary also claimed that Grady Jr. once threatened her with a knife, saying he would hurt her and the children. That made law enforcement look into their family members since they believed a motive existed. According to Mary's own account, she was at Kathy's trailer with her grandchildren. They learned that Grady III was sleeping in his room during that time. Although he had woken up to the sounds of gunshots, he presumed it to be sounds from the movie or television show his father was watching. Styles' son, Grady Styles III, disputes the claim that Mary Teresa had him murdered. According to him, his mother, Mary Teresa, and father were arguing. Mary Teresa had said something needs to be done. Teresa's son overheard this and went to a neighbor and repeated those words. However, they made Glenn undertake a polygraph test, which he failed. Subsequently, under tough interrogation, Glenn broke down and confessed to the entire plot. He took the officers through every step of the plan and indicated his mother, as well as Chris Wyatt. According to reports, he confessed that he and Mary could not take Grady Jr.'s abuse any longer. Based on the statement, Harry and Mary were arrested and charged with first-degree murder in November 1992. Upon searching Chris's house, police found the murder weapon. The bullets from the firearm turned out to be the exact match to the ones that were found at the crime scene. Chris was charged with the murder of Grady Jr., along with conspiracy to commit murder. Once in court, neither of the three agreed to a plea deal, and instead chose a jury trial. On February 24, 1994, Chris Wyatt, 19 at the time of sentencing, was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 27 years. Harry Glenn Newman, 20 at the time of sentencing, fared worse as he was considered the mastermind behind the plot. In one article, they said the irony that the kid with a 79 IQ was the mastermind. The jury took about an hour to convict him of first-degree murder. On October 14, 1994, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for at least 25 years. In her defense, Mary stated, quote, "My husband was going to kill my family. I believe that from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry this is happening. My family is safe now." She received little sympathy from the jury about her long history of being violently abused. On August 29, 1994, 56-year-old Mary Teresa received a reduced charge, but was found guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and manslaughter with a firearm and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Others in the close-knit community of present and former carnival workers, which clings to the moniker Showtown USA, There was little sympathy for Mary. Many knew and respected Lobster Boy. They remembered him as a smart businessman who went from working in a multi-freak caravans to owning his own shows. When people were down on their luck, he would lend them money. Though he was often disagreeable and drank to excess, Seagram's 7 and 7 doubles with a splash of coke, most carnies agreed with prosecutors who called the slaying a murder of convenience. Quote, all she had to do was walk away, said Jeannie Tomani, 77, a white-haired woman with rim-wired glasses who was once billed as the world's oldest living half-lady. She was a 2'6" woman born without legs and performed with her late husband, Al, an 8'4" performer. Wayne Murray, a former sideshow barker, said Mary went about it the wrong way. Quote, she would have stood a better chance had she turned around and killed herself. People can at least relate to that. To find anyone who supports Mary, you would have to go to the trailer where the slaying took place. Two of his children, Kathy and Grady III, couldn't say enough bad things about their father, who sometimes pulled them on stage to show how they inherited the lobster claw syndrome. Kathy described her father as Satan himself. In one incident, Kathy was 7 months pregnant when her drunken father knocked her out of the wheelchair when she tried to stop him from swatting her mother. The next morning, she was rushed to the hospital for an emergency C-section. Her daughter was born prematurely. She has the same lobster claw deformities. The 6th generation. Grady III wished to say one thing to his father. Thank you for showing me who not to be, and maybe you can appreciate who I became because of that. You were a drunken bastard, but you were my dad. The family has carried on. Grady III has a daughter, Sarah, who does not have electrodactyl. Kathy is remarried and has a lobster claw daughter named Misty. The three of them still perform on occasion. Kathy has taken up acting and has appeared in the series Carnival and in the Tim Burton film Big Fish. They survive on government disability checks. Mary was released on December 4, 2000, after serving 6 years in prison and went back to live in Gibsonton. Following her release, she has preferred to stay away from the public sphere, and once her present whereabouts are unknown. Chris Wyatt, too, found his freedom from jail on August 21, 2009, after serving 15 years, and has since lived under the radar, making it quite challenging to find out where he is at present. However, Harry Newman, according to the Florida prison records, met his end on March 2014 while still behind bars. Grady is buried with Stiles Sr., who was buried on November 27, 1988, at the age of 76, in the Showman section of Sunset Memory Garden Cemetery in Tonawanda, Florida. By the way, a bouquet of flowers adorned his coffin with a banner from his loving wife. His headstone bears no epitaph. The only marking is an engraving of an interesting enough praying hands, along with his name. His life was punctuated as an unhappy life and an unfortunate death. The family has carried on. Grady III has a daughter, Sarah, who does not have ectrodactyly. Kathy Stiles Berry and her husband, Trill, have a daughter with ectrodactyly named Misty. The three of them still perform on occasion. Kathy has taken up acting and has appeared in series Carnival and in the Tim Burton film Big Fish. This episode was squeezed to perfection. First We Squeeze is hosted and written by me, Sue Haley, and executive produced by Ebony. Still thirsty and need more? Visit us at fstcpodcast.com for links to all our social media handles, including YouTube. Want to keep the juice flowing? Make a donation by buying us a glass. And as always, cheers.